The excess death statistics at first seemed to suggest a spike in deaths, which could be attributed to the supposed pandemic. However, even this spike is within the normal seasonal range, and would not have attracted special attention if not for the full-spectrum terror campaign the Cult of Judah launched around the world. So there were a few thousand more deaths in the 2020 flu season than the past few years. But let's consider bushfire seasons in Australia and California. If you have a good bushfire season, it means that a lot of fuel has a chance to accumulate during the year you had few bushfires. This fuel is then ready and waiting for the next bushfire season. Of course, few people realize that even Australian Aborigines regularly started controlled fires to burn up such fuel, before the start of the bushfire season proper, and after the most recent season, so that there would be less such fuel for the next bushfire season. And few people have paid attention to the fact that the occupation governments of Australia and America banned such controlled burns, in a deliberate plan to ensure that the next bushfire season would be a big one. To artificially create the impression that things are getting worse. It is possible that the Cult of Judah even artificially induced a relatively mild flu season, in 2019, in order to produce a build-up of fuel for the next flu season, so that when this fuel of vulnerable people who survived the last mild flu season, were struck down by the usual suspects, these deaths would spike the statistics. You will note that the first 2019 to 2020 attributed death rates are higher than we are seeing this flu season, for that reason. And unless they release a real pandemic, or people sicken as a result of wearing masks, we can expect that this flu season will be either lower than, or similar to, the 2018 flu seasons, and the usual excess death rates due to vulnerable people being exposed to colder weather and the usual suspects in terms of winter pathogens. So the spike Sweden experienced was to be expected by any competent epidemiologist. But a spike that could be used deliberately to mislead the ill-informed and lay public, as part of a well-planned and executed worldwide PSYOPs, propaganda campaign of a scale never seen before in recorded world history, even in wartime. A full-spectrum propaganda campaign to terrorize the nations into submitting to social and economic restrictions intended to kill millions, and destroy national political and economic sovereignty. To grant the Cult of Judah's agents, the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, along with the United Nations and World Health Organization, de facto sovereignty of the entire planet, making them the de facto one world government dictatorship the Cult of Judah have been carefully orchestrating for the last 3,000 years. The statistics clearly show no medical justification lockdowns, or other restrictions, including mandatory face masks and social distancing. The statistics clearly show that none of the measures enforced by the Cult of Judah-occupied nations, had any positive impacts on the health of the slave citizens of those nations. The statistics clearly debunk the official World Health Organization assertion that the deaths attributed to COVID-19 are not seasonal. This flu season showed the typical seasonal excess death rates to be expected after a relatively mild previous flu season with relatively low excess deaths. Included is a list of 20 research papers which reach the same conclusions. All from highly prestigious and respected institutions. But it doesn't take a PhD to see that we've been deceived. In order to be enslaved,